With this, we will move on to our next session. Just to inform our all eminent speaker, this is the day one of APAC Global Education and Skill Conclave. The next 3 days, it's over 150 speakers from the education sector. Over 20 state governments are participating. Besides, 7 countries have joined us as country partner, sharing, collaborating sector and skill. With this, I would like to move on to our next panel discussion, which would be focusing on international competitiveness, global curriculum, standards, education as an industry, investments, and ease of doing business. I would like to call upon the EdTech icon, Divya Lal, who is the Managing Director for FlipLearn Education Private Limited. Welcome back once again, Divya. And Dr. Kavitha Jain, who is the Chief Executive Officer with MDN Edify Education. Thanks for joining us, Dr. Kavitha. And I would also like to call upon Dr. Skand Bali, who is the Principal for the Hyderabad Public School, Hyderabad, Telangana. Welcome, Mr. Dr. Skand. At the same time, welcome. I would like to also call upon Dr. Niyati Chitkara. She is the Vice President for the Schools Chitkara Educational Trust. Welcome, Dr. Niyati. And I will also
Thank you so much.
Welcome Aditi Goradia, who is the Managing Director for Billimoria High School. Hi, Aditi. Welcome. And Dr. Manimekalai Mohan, Founder and Managing Trustee, SSVM Institutions. Welcome, Dr. Manimekalai. And I would also call upon Mr. Mukesh Sharma, who is the Chairman and Director for Prometheus School. Welcome, Mr. Mukesh. Thanks for joining us. I welcome all the speakers for this wonderful session, and also Racquel Shroff, who's the CEO for Global Education. Thanks for joining us, Ms. Shroff. With this, I would request, do we have Divya here?
Divya is not going to be on this panel.
It's going to be Racquel.
So there's a change at your end.
Okay. Thank you very much. So I'm sure Ms. Shroff would be taking it over.
Thank you very much, Sudhir, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, tuning into this wonderful session. I'm really excited to share the panel with my esteemed colleagues who are joining us from all over India. Sudhir has introduced them already, but what strikes me is that they're all visionaries in their own right. Most of you have also been abroad, studied, but came back to India with that fire and passion to bring global education and high quality education to students in India and make a real difference to the communities that you're serving in. They're all very highly accomplished educators, thought leaders, award-winning professionals, and I encourage people to actually Google and read about them. We don't have time to introduce each one of them and do full justice to their work. But through this panel in the next couple of minutes, we hope to be able to share with you some of the exciting best practices and also their thoughts on how they are looking at the future, maybe from 2021 onwards. Though I think COVID has its many challenges and disruptions all over the world, I can't imagine a single global phenomenon that's also united the world like never before. And that's also helped us reimagine the future like we should be, and bringing about collaborations that may not have been possible before, because the whole world is so interconnected like never before. So all the more, I guess, what we are doing in India is not just to serve the communities that we live in India, but also the global communities. And we have with us leaders who are helping put India on the global map. So we'll start off with global curriculum standards. And often I'm asked or I'm privy to conversations by governments and educators from different countries on what should we be focusing on in school systems, given that everything is changing so rapidly at a pace that we've never imagined. So other than academic pursuit and knowledge, what are the other competencies that can be developed in young people so that they are equipped with the know-how to navigate this change and become lifelong learners? And that's what underpins, I guess, most curricular systems around the world. It's preparing students for their life and their future beyond academics. And it's very exciting that the National Education Policy is also talking about similar lines in their vision document. And the leaders from the various schools are already implementing aspects of this within their own schools, which are also relevant to the international school systems. So let me start off by asking my good friend, Dr. Niyati, whose school I've also had the privilege to visit. So Niyati, can you talk us through some of the innovations that you've brought in, especially in teacher education, and also your pet topic, which is assessments?
Right.
Assessments
Yeah.
which are beyond just academic assessments, including self-assessment, peer assessment,
Right.
Viva-VOCI, and things like that, which are also used in university, and you've been able to bridge that gap. And that's become very relevant, especially in this COVID period when proctoring is becoming a challenge, and we're all looking at different ways in which we can assess students, as well as preparing teachers for the new work order. Dr. Niyati.
Yeah, thanks, Racquel. Thank you so much. Well, just to answer what you asked, I think post-COVID situation, the first and the foremost thing that I feel, is something which should be part of the global curriculum, and should be applicable to all the schools across the globe, is research. Because I think this is the time where we want relevant research. We want case studies, we want application of what we've learned over these years. And research projects across the globe will help us raise the benchmark of our education system. So I think at our own school we are working very closely. First of all, just to introduce, we have 2 universities and 2 international schools. So we are working very closely with our university, and specifically the Teacher Education College. So the College of Education and our school, we do these joint projects with the universities across the globe. And these research projects include projects like content and language integration, then education reforms. So all these projects are important because ultimately they're going to be answering future, hopefully. So that's where I think, research could be part of the curriculum, because these research projects, of course, they're part of European Union, and a lot of other countries are also promoting research. But unless this research is put down at school level, and it enters the school in form of action research, case studies, simulated teaching, learning, and assessment systems, it's not going to be real. So that's where I feel that this should be part of the curriculum. Secondly, because our university has partnerships with approximately more than 160 universities across the globe. So there's a lot of future that can be gauged, if you start working with higher education institutions, because they are ultimately working with the industry, and industry provides jobs, and that is what drives higher education and school education. So that's where I feel that more and more school participation with the industry, more and more connect with the industry, will help us be better prepared, specifically now after the learnings from the post-COVID situations. Also, it is important to train teachers, because globally we've seen that, and we're working on this teacher education research project with a lot of countries across the globe, and everywhere we find the similar situation of learner knowing more than the teachers. So that's where the crisis is, and that's where we feel that we need to uplift the teacher education program. So we've come up with a unique program where we're trying to train teachers for future generations. We call the generations as alpha generation and beta generation, the forthcoming generations. They're all technology driven, they know it all. So how are we going to engage them? And specifically now, when we are all engaged in online teaching, how to hold a learner and sit through the session and continue with the same motivation, same excitement, is a challenge. So teachers have to be prepared accordingly. So I think, just to answer to what Racquel you asked, that it is important. The teacher preparedness is important, and we really need to invest and focus into that. So we are also working very closely with British Council. We are also doing joint classes with one class of students sitting in Italy, and one class of students studying in India in our school. So these joint classes where you have cultural immersions happening, you have joint assessments, you have presentations, you have flipped teaching learning, you have a 5th standard child teaching a 4th standard child, of one country to another country. So these are the kind of things where we can collaborate, and we can raise the global curriculum to a particular standard. So that's about it.
Okay, thank you very much for that. We'll then move on to Dr. Skand. You are the head of a very renowned school in Hyderabad, and you have brought in some new innovations, preparing students for, again, life and work, not just academics and careers. So can you talk us through some of those initiatives in vocationalization and entrepreneurship, and anything else that you'd like to add, Dr. Skand?
Hello, Ms. Shroff. Thank you so much for, first of all, having me over. And it's a pleasure to be in the company of such esteemed educationists and people from all over the country. Yes, you are right. We have given the top leaders of the world. I don't think there are many schools in the world who can meet the stature of the alumni which our school has given. But in past few years, we have taken up a few initiatives to work on the mental health of a child, because I strongly believe that the qualities and the activities or the things which were happening or which were helping the community, say 600 years back or 700 years back, there's no reason why they will not work today or they will not work in future. For example, creativity, critical thinking, compassion, character, communication, and so on and so forth. So what we have introduced in our school is we have incorporated agriculture as a very important activity in the school now, where the students have to put their heads and hands totally into the mud and figure out something new. We have started the entrepreneurial club in the school. We have set up a department called Department of Progressive Learning. Now, this Department of Progressive Learning focuses on day-to-day issues to the largest possible issues around the world. Like, for example, why a particular company has been closed down in a particular country, or why a particular company has gone into a contract with another company. These are some of the topics which some of the students brainstorm, and they enact to be in the boardroom of a company, and they have to take that decision, what they would have done differently, etc. So that is something which we have incorporated in our school, in our curriculum as well. Because I think that's very, very important, that you give them opportunity to think out of the box, to do certain things differently, to live by the day of what is happening around them. Because to be honest, the professions which are today, may not be relevant 5 years down the line. And the professions which will be extremely important and critical 5 years down the line do not exist today. So I strongly believe that future belongs to the liberal arts. Future belongs to the students who can think out of the box and bring something new. So that's what we are working on. So we are very closely working on that aspect of the children. So we have also introduced a concept called the quality circles concept, wherein the students are divided into smaller groups with the faculty. Then faculty is also divided amongst their own smaller groups. They meet once in a fortnight for about an hour or so. They come up with one particular problem. They first list a number of problems which they are facing in school or in day-to-day life of the school, which could be as small as student late coming to the school, and could be as big as infrastructural challenge or something like that, or policy document. Then they work on that document. They produce a proper document how that can be resolved. And then their ideas are brought into our management table, and we incorporate those ideas. So these are some of the initiatives we have taken to prepare them for the future fights which they'll have to face, which we are not aware of today. So these are some of the things which we are doing in our day-to-day life in the school.
That sounds absolutely exciting, and I think India definitely needs more people to also create jobs, isn't it? As well as helping people find their right fit when they transition out of school. And at the OECD level, I think the OECD is also looking at global competence. How do you develop global competence, which includes collective well-being, just like what you highlighted, Dr. Skand, and sustainable development. And like what Niyati said, building intercultural competencies of young people by understanding perspectives from different countries and being mindful of maybe similar problems that those countries also face and how you can actually go about resolving them. So that's all exciting, and that's globally as well. I think if you benchmark them, I think you would score very high on those parameters. So excellent. We'll move on to Dr. Manimekalai, who is from Coimbatore. Dr. Manimekalai, can you talk about what you've excelled in doing, which is finding that really nice balance of, developing individual identities of students, identities and values, but combining it with some international exposure, because you are catering to the local community, but I think you also have a lot of maybe people of Indian origin who come back to Coimbatore or who have links with your school. So can you talk us through how you find that balance, which is very quintessentially Indian, isn't it, of the values and identity, but being internationally connected as well?
Yeah, to talk about it, the global curriculum, we have to generally say it's designed with the future in mind, and with the idea that future will depend on interconnected education and have a sense of citizenship that expands beyond borders. So in our school, we have two main programs. I think most of the schools are also following that in Andhra, Telangana, and even north of India, like it's Leader in Me program, Stephen Covey's program, where the children learn more about values and how to practice their life by placing right things at the right areas and focus on it. And at the same time, we have another program called Planet Protector. They again educate the children how to protect this globe from the disasters which is now presently happening. So having all this in mind is like having content standards which will be developmentally appropriate for the learners to know, then care about and be able to do anything at their own level of learning, which is very important. Because today whatever we teach, they just take in, but they don't know how to apply and where to apply. At last they end up with things like okay, I learned, but still they have their family characteristic influence. Through global education, we can see the students develop self-awareness, learn cultural beliefs, and these get connected within the borders and beyond the borders. And again, they'll be able to be socially aware, respect others, communicate with empathy, and build strong relationship with diverse individuals and groups. And again, if you see, there are few essential things that really need for these children for the future are around the globe. All the school leaders should consider rethinking about the learning space, because the traditional learning space would have been only the classroom, a veranda, box. But today, the learning space should encourage with the learning environment. So children will also know how to keep their space more equipped with the nature. And another suggestion also, what we follow generally in the school is, we don't want to categorize the children as average and bright. So every educator should understand the needs of every child through interaction with the children themselves and with the families, and create a more individualized learning space. When you start creating that more individualized learning space, ultimately the children, they know the value of their own country, as well as they know how to present themselves globally. And again, when you come to the part of the student side, they should know to appreciate the culture, cross-cultural community, digital today online teaching is going on. They should know the ethics, how they have to get equipped with the digitalized literacy and not go in the wrong track. So like this, I can keep going on saying a lot of things. When coming to the part of the teachers, to get their children globally equipped, we normally see that our teachers are familiar with the global conditions and current events. They must be aware of how the world is interconnected, and they must have an experiential understanding of diverse cultures. They must understand intercultural communication. So when these things are all going hand in hand, I'm very sure the global education system, along with the values which we inculcate to the children, will reach to the higher standards of the children, and they can face the world easily with whatever challenges they face.
Absolutely. Very well said, Dr. Manimekalai. I think if we can all achieve that, the world will definitely be a much nicer place for everyone. And young people will thrive no matter how the future pans for them. I will then move on to Mr. Mukesh Sharma. I think COVID has, while it has highlighted the digital divide, it's also helped us use technologies in new and interesting ways. And technology and digital literacy is a very key component for not just young people, but for all of us, professionals as well. And while we are entering the age of working with technology, we also need to develop the social, emotional, ethical skills that people need. But you run an IB school, and you've been able to balance both and leverage technology in a very interesting way. Can you share more light on that, please?
Sure. Thank you, Ms. Shroff. It's a pleasure for me to be here along with other panelists. My name is Mukesh Sharma, and I'm the first generation entrepreneur. Education, getting into starting school, Prometheus school, happened just last year. So I run a IT company. It's a quality assurance software testing company. So technology is something that I've been dealing with for last 20 years. When the virus outbreak happened, it forced almost all educational institutions to utilize technological tools and enable remote learning. Educators had they were forced to start to identify new possibilities to do things differently with greater flexibility. Now, when you think about primary students, in pre-nursery, nursery, it is very, very difficult to connect with them over Zoom or any online media, right? Making them sit at one place for 5 minutes is an accomplishment. How do you make it happen through technology? If you play a video, that parents can also play at home. How are you building those social skills? So we thought of multiple ways of engaging children, role playing, giving engaging parents also, because parents have to partner, especially in these situations. So our parents partnered with us, and we came up with multiple ideas that helped students engage and spend more time learning online also. Um, uh, there are multiple benefits of leveraging technology. In fact, when the DM had declared schools to be shut down, we didn't lose even a day. We were able to come online within 24 hours over the weekend. So, all our teachers were trained to deliver sessions, and we were able to leverage technology, in a way that most of the young folks today, they use Netflix, Amazon Prime. So we created a platform called Prometheus OTT, which is OTT stands for over the top. And what that does is, whatever sessions that we were delivering online, those we were uploading on our Prometheus OTT platform. So students, even after the session, could go back and put a comment or question for teacher, and teacher could respond to the query. Otherwise, in a Zoom session, we followed not more than 10 students per class. So wherever we had 20 plus, we split the class so that we have one teacher taking the class, and not having to deal with more than 10 students, because that also was a big challenge. Every student wants to ask questions, and with so much disturbance, it becomes difficult for teacher also to stay focused. So we split the number of students into two sections, and even then we were finding it difficult for teachers to be able to respond to all questions that were coming from students. See, one of the core things that is there in IB is inquiry-based learning. So students are encouraged and motivated to ask questions, and with online learning, it made it a little difficult. So that's where the technology helped us, where we came up with Prometheus OTT video platform, where students could log in and post the question. Teachers can share a video with students if they miss a particular class. So that was one use of OTT. Now, there other learning management systems and all are not new. They were used in the past also. School management systems, learning management systems, assessments and all were happening in the past. Now even more. The other thing that we thought would be good to have is integration with a platform like validateme.online. Validateme.online is a blockchain enabled trusted document vault, wherein every student, irrespective of the school or the college, can upload the annual report. Now, Prometheus adopted validateme.online. So every child that we have, we started to upload their annual report in their account on validateme.online. And what that does is, if a child moves from one school to another school, they have their reports in that digital vault. It's similar to DigiLocker that the government had launched, and that worked out really well. In fact, when the COVID happened and we are interviewing candidates, we don't want the potential teachers to be sharing, the photocopy of documents, because, we don't want COVID, to be spread through exchange of documents. So we said validateme.online is playing a great role. What we did was we started to ask our potential candidates to submit their documents through validateme.online and share it with us. So basically sharing of document through validateme.online, and we can get the validation done. So if somebody claims,
Thank you very much, Dr. Mukesh. That's two very important things that you've highlighted on how you've made school available 24/7 through the exciting platform that you've created. You've also ensured that through the use of blockchain, that you've gone paperless, and all the transactions that were before COVID using some form of paper can now be done online for teaching, learning, assessment, and validation. That's absolutely fantastic and future focused. We'll move on to Dr. Kavitha. Thank you for your patience. We have 6 panelists, so we've all got to be patient, isn't it? So we'll move on to Dr. Kavitha, who, again, you brought about major changes in your organization when you took over as CEO. And one of the things that struck me is your, the 3 C's and your the partnerships that you've established with community. Niyati spoke about industry, Mukesh spoke about parent partnerships, but you've also looked at community partnerships and focused again on competencies, developing competencies as the core of everything that you do. Can you highlight some of your success stories?
Thank you so much, Ms. Shroff, and it's wonderful sharing the platform with other panelists. Some of them I know, I've been on panels with them before, and some are new. I completely agree with Dr. Niyati that research and connection to industry is so important for students to be able to make real life applications of what they're learning. One of the things that we've done at Edify, so we are a chain of schools. We have about 78 schools across the country, K-12 schools, over 164 preschools. Now, what we've done for all our students to have that industry connect, one, also to, some of the other panelists were mentioning, and you were also mentioning that guidance of how do they choose a career? Is it by peer pressure? Is it by parent pressure? Is it by, oh, I like biology, so I'll choose a subject that involves biology? Not really knowing what skill sets are required, and apart from just the academic knowledge that's required to pursue that as a career. So we put an internship program for students in place where all our students take up internship from grade 8 to grade 12. They take up internships of any profession of their choice. The school helps them make the connections. They go out, do 15 days of internship. So I have seen students change careers from wanting to be in hotel management to then finally deciding that they're going to be IT professionals or aeronautical engineers or even car designers. We had a student who started off saying that I want to be a choreographer, and then through these internships finally landed on, he worked with a car designer and said, this is what I want to do, and got his parents involved. And it was lovely to watch them make such informed decisions, making connections with the industry, knowing what it takes to work as a professional, and then choosing that by choice, not by a lot of pressure that's around them. So that's one program, and I think that's got immense value to our students. They really thank the school because they're also able to convince parents on why do they want to choose a particular profession, not just because my friend is doing this or I like the subject, because they know what it takes to live that profession. So that's one of the things that we've done. You mentioned about community. So community service is a very essential aspect of what we do at school. We get children involved in community service from grade 1 upward itself. They do a lot of activities that involves giving back to the community, spending time with the community, contributing. So every time they learn, they always end up asking, how can I make this world a better place with the knowledge that I have gained? So they take up activities. We have kids who have started NGOs. We have kids who are part of NGOs who have not just, so contribution is not money, it is actually ideas, time, being there, being involved. So that I think is another beautiful aspect. We have kids, I have kids, young kids walking up to me and say, I am a good person because I was able to do this. I was able to help another person. And I think that's beautiful education, isn't it? When children are not just saying I'm intelligent, but they're saying I'm a good person, I'm a good individual, and giving them that kind of a confidence through their actions is been very satisfying. Just one more thing that I would maybe like to highlight that we do across these schools. So because we are a chain of schools and we have different kinds of schools. We have IB, Cambridge, CBSE, schools in metro, schools in tier 3, tier 4 rural areas where there are first generation students. Their parents have never been to school. They're coming to the school for the first time. There's no support at home. So creating programs where we know parents may not be able to educate them at home, may not be able to contribute in the academic learning for the student at home. So a lot of parent education programs, not, when I say education, I don't really mean academic numeracy and literacy skills, I don't mean that, but how they could still promote learning with children, not having to help them with homework, but just going for a walk and talking about the different plants that they observe, just by taking them, spending time with them, making a cup of tea and teaching them certain essential skills. So parent involvement for us has been in multiple facets, not just in terms of academic learning involvement, but also a lot in terms of life skills and essential skill involvement. So that's another maybe thing that I would like to highlight.
That's fantastic. And I think Dr. Manimekalai alluded to something similar, where she said learning must continue beyond school and into home. And you've managed to empower parents as educators, even if they are not literate.
I'm sorry, I had to, I don't know if there's going to be another round, but just one mention maybe. Since this is about global curriculum, I think gender sensitivity and gender equality is something that all curriculums must consider adding. I know CBSE has done quite a bit in the recent past in terms of including this. Schools, including our schools, we do a lot of programs that involve gender sensitivity. On one of the other platforms I was recently sharing, we did one of our projects that students did was the boys and girls from grade 9 to grade 12 made sanitary napkins, eco-friendly sanitary napkins. So, I've seen that change in the boys from what am I doing, to gifting and buying these pads for their mothers and sisters, and understanding the pain that their friends are going through, their female friends are going through, being more respectful to them. And a very small change, but it's changed their mindset. If schools could take up projects that make both the boys and the girls aware of gender sensitivity, that will definitely help the global curriculum.
Absolutely, couldn't agree but more. And in Australia, part of Australia has just gone through its own curriculum revision in July, and it benchmarked itself against Canada, Finland, Singapore, and New Zealand. And a lot of aspects that you've highlighted are actually mentioned there. But it all again revolves around this, how do you prepare students for their life now and also in the future. So that's wonderful that you are doing it in different ways, and tackling the real challenges that you face, especially in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, where things like this may or may not be possible, and a lot of people would give up, but you've gone there and done that. Well done. We'll move on to Aditi. Nice to meet you again, Aditi.
Good to see you, Racquel.
Good. A visit to Panchagani is long overdue.
Yes, absolutely. I think everybody, and it's so good to see familiar faces. Dr. Bali and Kavitha, we were together I think 3 days ago on a women's entrepreneurship panel. So sorry, go ahead.
You run an institution which is over 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes when I reflect on, the Gurukulam system in India, and I think that was probably the world's first competency-based residential schooling. Isn't it?
Absolutely.
And it has its own merits. And you, I mean, obviously seen it evolve. You were a student yourself of the same institution, and you've come back and you're trying to make changes. And you focus a lot on this interdisciplinary approach, experiential learning, and preparing students for a global society. So, and I'm sure you've had issues and challenges to overcome because it's a legacy, isn't it, that you've inherited? How do you do that, and how can you share some of your initiatives?
Absolutely, Racquel. Thank you for the question. I think Dr. Bali can relate that being a residential school, the parent partnership is not primary for us. Most of our parents are not, we are the parents. It's all up to us, everything from the child's culture to language to belief systems and academics, of course. And then add to that the parents' expectations, right? So the parents are there, but only to tell us what they want us to do with their kids, and then they're not there. And the onus is on us primarily. Apart from that, when even when I was a child, and then, when I worked in the US and worked here in education, there's this dichotomy in India of progressive learning and how do we fit into the global context, which is the future we're looking towards and aspiring towards. But then there's also what about the syllabus, and what about the textbooks, and what about the marks and admissions and entrance exams? And how do you balance this? Because you're onboarding your teachers, you're onboarding your parents. Sometimes you sound like a crazy person, sorry to say it, but when you say, forget the textbooks, and they all look at you like, are you nuts? So how do you bring it all together? And I realized at some point that we can, because if, we do this thing at Billimoria called the Week Without Walls program, which actually globally a lot of schools do, which is it's learning outside the walls of the school, but it's not picnics, it's not visiting a factory and doing a tour. You work with the factory. So you become one of the workers, very similar, Kavitha, to what you guys are doing with the internships, So they go out there and they take their curriculum of what's in that NCERT textbook. Because as a child, even I never understood what is the point of trigonometry. So I went out there and I asked my teachers, like, how do you apply this? And we came up with this program. So from first grade on, if they're learning something, they go out and they try it out, whether it's hospitality, where they work in the back end of a hotel to see how the sanitization is done and how the customer service is done, or making a device to measure the school's towers and the grounds so you can apply trig, all subjects across the board. And we've seen a lot of difference, because then it doesn't matter, hand that child a textbook and he'll solve all the problems because it's already embedded, the concept. So we're trying to walk that fine line between the expectations and the exams. Even if we do away with our internal exams, the board exams still exist, and there's a long way to go even with the NEP to evolve that. So there is that. There's a lot of, we focus a lot on compassion, kindness, empathy, and boarding school helps with that, because there's kids from all kinds of backgrounds and countries, and we're trying to teach, as you said, Kavitha, again, gender sensitivity. If there's a boy who likes the color pink, there's nothing wrong with it. Eons ago it was not okay. So we're teaching kids to be accepting of everyone and everything. It's not about gender, it's not about age, it's not about skin, it's not about anything. We're all in the same boat. And we're doing this through a lot of leadership programs, a lot of problem solving initiatives. The kids take ownership of everything that happens on campus, kind of like what Dr. Bali said, that everything from what we're going to eat in the dining room to, is there enough food, and somebody didn't like something, somebody didn't do something, should we tuck in our shirts and polish our shoes, was one thing that the teenagers came up with. And I said, you know what, I'm going to let you guys figure that one out. We'll sit here and enable you, but then the conversation has to be at the children's level. Well, let them think about why. why do we do certain things in life? Why do we have to learn certain subjects? What is the value of everything that we do? What is the value of the people in our lives? So everything from, you know, working in the farms to, we've just partnered with this amazing film festival called the All Living Things Environmental Film Fest, which is a group of youth in Panchkini, and they have permaculture farms and stuff. So our kids go out there and work with them. So just a lot of hands-on stuff, exploring the world around them. We did Fridays for Future.
Does hands-on stuff get assessed, Aditi?
Absolutely. So they have to talk about it, report it, analyze it, and talk about how it could be done better. So if they go into, say, a special school to read to the children and spend time with them, they need to come back and talk about or write about how it feels and what they could do and what they would change. You know, if they could change one thing over there, what would you change? Why do you think this is important? So when we did Fridays for Future and we got like 3,000 kids in Panchkini together to rally, it wasn't just banners, it was why. Why not burn down trees? Why not have, you know, like, because there's a lot of farm burning in India. Why not? What's going to happen? And it was fascinating because a couple of first graders came to me and said, I don't understand, if I throw wrappers on the ground, what does that have to do with greenhouse gases? And it just blew me away because I was like, you know what, we're going to have to really get into it. And kids come back and they say, we want to start this initiative like Greta Thunberg, but for zoos. We want zoos to shut down across the world. And so they have to analyze it. It's not just declarations. And then that is assessed. There's a lot of mentorship from the teachers as well. So enable children to explore their interest areas, even if it sounds very unconventional. So let them explore.
Assessment and peer assessment.
Peer assessments, absolutely.
And you're helping people find purpose at the end of the day, isn't it?
Absolutely. And that purpose can change. We're also teaching them that you may want to be an environmentalist today, and then 2 years later, you might want to work with a corporate, and there's nothing wrong with it. Take the values that you have learned to make the world a better place. You know,
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's that transferability of skill sets that's so critical for young people, isn't it? Because it's
interpersonal, you know, it's not just about books and what's on the internet. What kids today are missing, even with the COVID, like we've all managed to get online, but what about conflict resolution? What about self, you know, assessment, self-actualization, self-management? Yeah. Yeah. So we're doing that even online. We have a lot of life skills sessions and stuff online. So it's working out.
Okay, fantastic. So that is a roundup of, you know, some of the, I would say, global best practices that are happening right here in India. And, you know, you've highlighted some of them. Since you already are doing things which are on par with, you know, some of the finest schools around the world, and with the, you know, given the COVID situation, it's also opened up new opportunities, isn't it? So if you consider your school, maybe not just in your city or state, but your school could be a school for different types of learners. It doesn't necessarily have to be kids in that region. There could be kids from anywhere in the world, because like Mukesh said, his school is 24/7 online. People can, like Netflix, tune in from anywhere if they choose to, if they are aware of it, they could. And you could probably look at, you know, other ways of expanding your offerings, both within your city as well as hubs that you can be part of internationally as well. So I'd like your views on that, on what do you see as the new emerging opportunities for education systems and schools in particular. So we'll start again with Niyati.
Yeah.
You're on the spot again.
Right. So Racquel, I think there are a lot of opportunities, you know, that we can foresee post COVID situation. And one, as Dr. Kavitha and Aditi just mentioned, we were talking about internships. But since your organization is helping schools and universities to get that international connect, So maybe you could be instrumental in helping schools to come up with international internships. Now, this is something where we could do a model where physically student is traveling for some time, or maybe it could be online or something. So your organization, since you help schools, you help universities to connect through so many future um, universities and programs. So that is where your organization can be helpful, and I see a lot of potential there. Secondly, I think digital portfolio development of each and every student, going absolutely personalized with each and every learner, is something which will happen in the future. The more we go personalized, and when it comes to personalized, it is taking care of all the physiological, psychological, developmental needs of the learners. So that is where there's a lot of scope and potential. The counseling part, the career guidance part is something which has a lot of future. And also education as an industry, because there's a report by CPPR, Center for Public Policy Research, which says that education is a very, very fast developing industry, and specifically education in India, we're the second largest in the country. So that's where I feel that there's a lot of potential. There is a lot of potential in teacher education program as per the national education policy now. And it's just not one region to another region in India, but it is from one country to another country globally. So a lot of people now they come from other countries to get their internships done. We're doing the same with Macquarie, we're doing the same with Vancouver Island University. So their batch of 70-80 teachers, interns, they come and learn the Indian style of teaching to our schools. So it is going to be a lot of exchange, a lot of cultural immersion, a lot of exchange of teaching pedagogies, learning and assessment pedagogies. So all those things, I see a lot of future there. So going personal is my take on the future part of it.
Okay. I think that's, yeah, there's a lot of exciting options that you've highlighted there, Niyati. I'd like to invite anybody else on the panel to comment on what do you see as the future. Would you like to have your schools present in another country? Would you like to have your schools online perhaps and enroll maybe children of people of Indian origin who are in different countries and who would like to maybe take up value-based education or languages and things like that? I remember when my daughter grew up in Melbourne, and she didn't have an option of learning an Indian language, so she ended up doing Mandarin till her high school. Which in some ways is very useful now. So, but at that time, the only thing we could do being in Melbourne is she did a few sessions with a teacher. This I'm talking about, 10 years back in India, and she did Vedic maths. We tried to get another Indian, language, but language learning is hard online because you've got to be in an immersive environment. But there were options like that existed, which you can probably using technology now leverage. So what do you see? Where do you think you will head in the future? It's open to anyone. Dr. Manimekalai, Dr. Skand, any of you want to comment, or Mukesh?
Yeah, I would love to comment. See, I think this pandemic has forced all of us to rethink the way the schooling was done. Even the fees, right? So international schools for number of reasons charge premium, right? But then it is because of the infrastructure. But if it is, if you keep the infrastructure aside and talk only about learning, right, or the classes, which are basically subject classes, or then you could even engage teachers from around the world for specific subjects, right? And that's very much possible, if and we've been thinking about and we've already engaged at least a couple teachers, from different countries, and that I think would happen if we were to continue to be in online. There are possibilities of online schools also, like you said. So students from other countries can also register in your school, as long as there is flexibility that your school provides to them, which is, if I miss a class, are you going to mark me absent? Or do you have a platform wherein you could at any point of time see whether I paid attention? So there is a class that exists online. I take that class and I do the assessment, which is integrated assessment, right? And there are analytics that basically help administrators or teachers know whether the student actually paid attention or just move the forward button, right? So when the students are actually watching the video, it will record that, it will provide you that statistics. So I think it is very much possible to see. I'm hoping that in the coming times we'll see online schools coming up with the students from around the world registering, as well as the fees for international schools would come down. The overall development is important, and that's why it is important to have the sports infrastructure and extracurricular. But for that, you could have something in your community, and there'll be new business opportunities that would come up, wherein students are studying somewhere in online, and then they are for sports activities and all, they register somewhere else. I think that's my take on it.
Okay, fantastic. That's interesting. Kavitha, if you want to add something.
Mr. If I add on. So we've already, I would say it's maybe stage 3 of launching an online school very soon. We've got a lot of inquiries from students from different countries, mostly developing countries as yet, but a lot of, our current schools, especially the one that we have at Hyderabad, we have a lot of NRI kids. Parents are in the US, the Telugu parents, local parents are in the US, but they want the kids to study in India for various reasons. And they all love this concept. So we're working, we've had teachers in the past while we were having face-to-face schools also from different countries. And now they're able to recommend more teachers to us if it is online. So we are soon launching a model of online school where we are registering students from around the world. It's more on a homeschooling concept. I really will not say it can replace schooling, because a lot of onus of learning really shifts in an online school. The onus of learning is on the student. There's a greater emphasis on independent learning. There's a greater emphasis on self-discipline and bringing in, by yourself, than being encouraged by a physical classroom in terms of the peers and the teachers and things like that. So greater parent involvement, more focus or onus of learning from the student side will make the model successful. But in terms of launching something like this, maybe 3 months down the line, we'll have the online school up and ready for kids to enroll.
Fantastic. And I think those, so both of you are already prepared to launch into the online space and attract the digital natives from around the world. And you've also mentioned, bring the price point down so that quality education does not necessarily mean expensive education. And I think if you can provide high quality education at the right price point, then you would have takers from around the world. How do you propose to overcome barriers like, for example, recognition or equivalence in other countries beyond India, where they may not be familiar with, especially in higher secondary, either the CBSE or the ISC. If you're IB or A level, it's fine, but how do you propose to overcome those barriers, Kavitha?
So in India, I think NIOS does a wonderful job of having recognitions which are acceptable and equivalent to a CBSE or ICSE, or basically a high school certificate. And across the world, boards like IB and Cambridge, they accept independent candidates. So while a child can still study at home, do the entire online schooling, go and write an exam at a closest affiliated school, and hence the recognition of certificate or assessment at the board level is really not a challenge.
Okay.
It's just that parents have to be more open to the idea of open schooling NIOS. Unfortunately, in India, and I've been working on identifying reasons as to why this is so, but parents generally think NIOS is for special children, is for children with special needs, is for children who are not so intelligent, which is unfortunate. It's not really so, but that's a myth or a perception that's developed, and it'll take some time to maybe break those preconceived notions about the system NIOS. But I think that's a beautiful system. It gives amazing flexibility to students who want to do online schooling or homeschooling.
Yeah, I think so. You're saying the online schooling is affiliated to NIOS and not any other board.
Yeah, so the assessments or the certification comes from NIOS. So NIOS has certifications at grade 3, grade 5, grade 8, grade 10, grade 12. Kids could take these, which are equivalent to any other board's certification. So a grade 10 NIOS is as good as a CBSE grade 10. Or if a student comes from an international, from a different location, not from India, let's say we have, like, for example, we have a lot of inquiries from Thailand, from Korea, from Dubai. We have inquiries from these locations, and they could very well, we could register them for Cambridge or IB as an independent candidate. Right. So they would still read, and then they, learn the program and then take their checkpoint assessments in case of Cambridge at the nearest assessment center.
Excellent. So that's a nice way of catering to the global marketplace and probably attracting investors as well, isn't it? Maybe further down the line.
That's the challenge, really, Ms. Shroff, because unfortunately, online or otherwise, schooling in India is not for profit. So getting investors for schooling, for K-12 school segment is really, unless you are typically setting up an infrastructure company and a consultancy company and keeping the school operations independent from these, it's really a challenge.
I was told in the last 10 years in India, about $3 billion of foreign investment has flowed into the education sector, but they're largely directed towards edtech companies, though there are some school chains that have also been globally competitive enough to, I guess, attract foreign direct investment.
But in fact, because the lack of success, I wouldn't say lack of success really, but I would say the challenges in terms of exit of these investors has demotivated investors to invest further in the K-12 school segment.
Right, I guess the VCs want 2x, 3x very quickly, isn't it? And that may not be possible unless you have patient money. Aditi.
Yes, sorry. I wanted to go back to what you were asking about the future. And you know what Kavitha said, congratulations. I think that's a great initiative because it's so required to have online alternative school. I have a lot of friends personally who are unschooling or homeschooling their kids in India. And I think unschooling is so brave. But apart from, the masses are not going to go for it. But apart from that, there's also the non-academic. And as a residential school, we have so much to offer. And I think a lot of day schools do as well. You see parents in the cities whose children want to take up certain subjects like Mandarin or, any other language or any other specialized co-curricular, extracurricular. And the trainers may not readily be available in your neighborhood. But this year in India, it's opened up the doors because, hey, now you can find, you can go to outschool.com and find somebody to teach you whatever, about space, and they're sitting in Australia. And why not do the same here? Because Outschool doesn't have any, Indian teachers or whatever. And we have so many talented, hardworking people here who need to be empowered, who need to be trusted, who need to be trained. And there is so much more apart from the mass-produced coding classes that we've now taken, with Gung Ho in India. Apart from coding, there's so much more. There is, we can teach Sanskrit and sitar and tabla and whatever that we special. I know somebody in our education network is doing this series on the Chola Empire, and there's panels and there's a whole program. And there are people across, and universities have been doing this for eons, decades across the world. Universities have so many alternative programs.
Absolutely. I think
So
that
kids can sign up for like a 8-week thing, and you're offering so much to the world.
absolutely. I think the way forward is definitely 24/7 mobile friendly micro credentials. For young learners in school or working professionals or those in career transition because their jobs have changed or disappeared, everybody has to, I guess, reinvent themselves and reimagine their careers and repurpose what they have. I've been told that we've got to wrap up. I know we were originally meant to go till 2, but I've been told we have to wrap up now. So closing comments from Dr. Manimekalai.
I would like to mention one thing, because in today's generation, only one type of school is going to survive in future. So you have a rote learning system and holistic developmental school. So the holistic developmental school is the only school which is going to enter the future and which is going to make the child progress in this challenging globe. So to overcome this, we should have high challenging spirit, strong teamwork and responsibility, commercial awareness, leadership qualities, result orientation, then trustworthiness and ethics. If all this is going to happen, and if all the school, that is, I have to say the school owners, if they take the responsibility of understanding how the educational system is traveling, that is very important. So as in how Kavitha said, when you take into consideration the schools in India, it's not an money-making concept, because here in India, we have a lot of restrictions where the government says fees fixations, etc., etc. Even though we give them the best of the best, still we are constrained to do certain things. But still, the school owners, if they are very broad-minded and they think that, okay, my quality is the children. So the children, when they reach the world, they will understand that the school has given them the best, it is going to be the best of everything. And again, the teachers have to play a major role, not expecting only the salary. Let them put out their best, because in today's generation, even the teachers, when you take into consideration, they stand within the bracket of salary, their promotions, etc., etc. So those things can come into fold, and students also, they have to be open-minded to take up the challenges and grow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt.
So we will have to draw this session to a close. Thank you everybody for your time this morning and sharing your insights and also your foresights about what you think should happen, is likely to happen in the future. Wish you all the very best. And I'm sure everybody tuned in has got some value out of this session. Thank you very much and continue to enjoy the conference. Back to you, Sudhir. I know you've been asking me to wrap up for a long time.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I think there was a communication gap that we have a very special guest, a keynote speaker who joined us in the session. Please join me in welcoming a very eminent personality leading a very reputed institution with the Government of India under Niyati Aayog, which helps in promoting innovations, facilitating, giving tools to the innovations and promoting entrepreneurship. Dr. Ramanan Ramanathan, who is the Mission Director, Atal Innovation Mission under Niyati Aayog. Welcome, Dr. Ramanan. So with this, I would like to thank all our eminent panelists, and especially for Racquel, Shroff, who moderated this session very well, enriching deep insights from all our experts. I would like to thank Dr. Kavitha Jain, who is the CEO of MD and Edify Education. Also, Dr. Skand Bali, Principal with the Hyderabad Public School. And Dr. Niyati Chitkara, Vice President Schools, Chitkara Educational Trust. Aditi Goradia, Managing Director, Billimoria High School. And Dr. Manimekalai Mohan, Founder and Managing Trustee for SSVM Institution. And also Mr. Mukesh Sharma, who's the Chairman and Director, Prometheus School. Thank you very much, everyone, for this deep and insightful and wonderful discussion.